Continued failure at this council is inexcusable. Over 2 million Palestinians are on a survival mission every day, every night. More injustice and more killing will not make Israel safer. If you say you are for international law, international humanitarian law, and for protection of civilians, then nothing can justify what Israel is doing.
In what world do you live? Definitely, this is not our world. Saturday, October 7, will go down in history as nothing less than a brutal massacre. Saturday, October 7, is a wake-up call for the entire free world. We call for immediate, the Red Cross access to all the hostages and their unconditional release.
We are here today to stop the killing, to stop the massacres being committed against the Palestinian people. The ongoing massacres being deliberately and systematically and savagely perpetrated by Israel, the occupying power, against the Palestinian civilian population under its illegal occupation must be stopped. The Security Council has a duty to stop them. The international community is obliged under international law to stop them. It is our collective human duty to stop them. Now, continued failure at this council is inexcusable. Mr. President, we express appreciation to Brazil for convening this session of the Security Council and elevating its participation in light of the gravity of the situation we are facing. We thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for his sobering briefing and for his tireless efforts, and that of the UN agencies and humanitarian staff on the ground, particularly UNRWA, working round the clock. We mourn with them the senseless killing of UNRWA staff and other humanitarian workers, including doctors, nurses, and paramedics, who were directly targeted by this ongoing barbarous aggression. They are heroic champions of humanity at a time of abject depravity. Mr. President, over 2 million Palestinians are on a survival mission every day, every night. By the time representatives are done delivering their speeches today, 150 Palestinians will have been killed, including 60 children. In the last 2 weeks, over 5,700 Palestinians have been killed, including over 2,300 children and 1,300 women. Compared to the population of Gaza, that is the equivalent of 145,000 British citizens or 700,000 US citizens. Almost all those killed by Israel are civilians. Over 1 million displaced, 170,000 housing units destroyed. Excellencies, only international law and peace are worthy of your country's unconditional support. More injustice and more killing will not make Israel safer. No amount of weapons, no alliance will bring to it security. Only peace will. Peace with Palestine and its people. The fate of the Palestinian people cannot continue to be dispossession, displacement, denial of rights, and death. Our freedom is the condition of shared peace and security. You have all spoken of the Palestinian people's legitimate grievances, addressing them, of their legitimate aspirations, help achieving them, of their right to self-determination, support its realization. For those actively engaged to avoid an even greater humanitarian catastrophe and regional spillover, it must be clear that this can only be achieved by putting an immediate end to the Israeli war launched against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Stop the bloodshed. There is no amount of humanitarian aid that can address the situation if more death, destruction, and devastation are imposed on our people in Gaza. There is no way to contain underlying tensions in our region if that reality does not change. There are so many fronts open for war and none for peace. Some of my colleagues spoke to me about the pain and anger of the bereaved families. Every family in Gaza is a bereaved family. No one is spared. No one is safe. Where is the solidarity with them? Where is the empathy towards them? Where is the outrage for their killing? If these expressions are genuine, they cannot be accompanied by excuses for the killer and reasons for him to continue the killing. We should be on the same side, all of us who believe in justice and in peace, in the rule of international law, in the value and sanctity of human life. We should stand shoulder to shoulder in these moments. But that is only possible if everyone recognizes the value of Palestinian life, the need to uphold Palestinian rights. This is only possible if you offer unconditional support to the rule of international law and the objective of peace, not to those breaching the former and destroying the latter. Sooner or later, you will have to admit that the interests of your countries and those of this Israeli government are not aligned, but rather opposed. If you say you are for international law, international humanitarian law, and for protection of civilians, then nothing can justify what Israel is doing. This is targeting of civilians, or at best inhumane, unlawful, indiscriminate attacks. This is collective punishment. Once you remove the principles of humanity and distinction from the laws of war, nothing remains. These are crimes and should be treated as such. What Israel is doing is consistent with its belief that we are subhumans, or human animals, as they put it. But surely you don't share that belief. You do not believe our lives are less worthy, less sacred, more expendable. So imagine what you would do if bombs were falling on Israel, killing civilians by the thousands, and then ask, why is this any different? Israel has killed thousands of Palestinians over the years, and yet no one suggested that entitled us to start killing Israeli civilians, neither under a right to defend ourselves, to protect our own, or to resist. Your message was always clear. Nothing can justify killing Israeli civilians. Well, nothing justifies killing Palestinian civilians. Nothing.
As we meet here today, young babies, children are held in Gaza. This is beyond imagination, a living nightmare. Ofri, 10 years old. Avigail, 3 years old. Maya, 17 years old. Raz, 4 years old. Aviv, 2 years old. Ariel, 4 years old. Kfir, little Kfir, only 9 months. Yuval, 8 years old. Ofir, 17 years old. There are just a few of the many children and babies that have not seen evil. They have not caused evil, but they are victims of evil. These kids witness horror which cannot be described by word. Mr. Secretary General, in what world do you live? Definitely, this is not our world. Do I want to remember the creation of hell, the shouts of the raiders in joining the hunt, cries of the wounded begging for life, faces of mothers craved with pain, hiding children, dripping with fear? No, I don't want to remember. But how can I forget? Do I want to remember this world upside down? Families vanish in the midst of the day. The mass grave steaming with vapor of blood. Mothers screaming for children in vain. No, I have to remember and never let you forget. This heart-burning poem was written by Alexander Kimmel, a Holocaust survivor in 1942. 5 years later, the United Nations General Assembly voted in favor of the creation of the Jewish state, the birth of the state of Israel. 75 years ago was a clear statement. Never again. Never again. Saturday, October 7, will go down in history as nothing less than a brutal massacre. Saturday, October 7, is a wake-up call for the entire free world, a wake-up call against extremism and terror. On that day, over 1,500 terrorists of Hamas and Islamic Jihad infiltrated Israel from the south with a viciousness exceeded even ISIS, killing over 1,400 babies, children, women, and men, and wounded over 4,000. They went from house to house, slaughtering entire families and individuals in the beds, on the streets, on the way to the synagogue, raping women, burned them alive, dancing and chanting on people's bodies. You have not been there. You have not seen the horror or smell it. Let us pause for a moment. Think about many innocent people that just wake up in Saturday morning. So many of them are not yet brought to a final burial. And let's recite the immortal words of the Jewish prayer for the dead, the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah. This massacre will go down in history as more brutal than ISIS. Hamas are new Nazis. Hamas are the new Nazis. Just as the civilized world united defeat the Nazis, just as the civilized world united to defeat ISIS, the civilized world has to stand united behind Israel to defeat Hamas. Let us not mistaken about Hamas' intention. I'm sure, Secretary General, you can read it. Its charter clearly calls for the destruction and elimination of the state of Israel. This will never be. Over 220 were taken hostage. Among the hostages, children who have seen their parents murdered. Holocaust survivor, elderly in need for care and medicine. We call for immediate, the Red Cross access to all the hostages and their unconditional.
नमस्कार, मैं हूं मानक गुप्ता। अगर आपको हमारा ये वीडियो पसंद आया हो तो इसे लाइक और शेयर जरूर करें, और हां, हमें सब्सक्राइब और फॉलो करना ना भूलें ताकि आप देश और दुनिया की कोई खबर मिस ना करें। तो जुड़े रहिए हमारे साथ और देखते रहिए न्यूज़ 24।